Hi guys, today we're going to be looking at a game that was played during the Muranga Open Chess Championship. It was between Newton Karimi and Sasha Mongeli, and in my opinion, Sasha Mongeli is one of the players that you should have your eye out on during the national championships that are happening next week. So it's Newton Karimi against Sasha Mongeli, and in this game we're really going to see how uh, much understanding Sasha Mongeli has of chess than pretty much most of the players, even in the open section, because she played in the open section in this tournament, in the tournament that you're going to be showing right now. But I believe, I'm not too sure, but I believe she'll be playing the ladies section during the national championships. So without wasting any more time, let's dive straight into the game. Newton started with knight to f3, knight to f6 by Sasha, knight to c3, some sort of a reti opening, pawn to d5, pawn to d4, bishop to f5, bishop f4, pawn to c6, and now pawn to e3, pawn to e6. All symmetrical at the moment, nothing crazy going on. Pawn to a3, and now bishop to d6. Newton declined the bishop trade on f4 by playing his bishop to g5. It's wasting a tempo, but then if you can prove that it works, then it just works. So knight b to d7, just adding more defense to the knight on f6, preparing to move the queen somewhere else, maybe to b6, maybe to c7, depending on what the position calls for. Bishop to d3, queen to c7 as advertised, and now bishop takes on f5, pawn takes back on f5, and we're going to be seeing a structure that it's very common in these players. I say these players, I mean Joyce Nyarai, Sasha. I also saw it in the Julie game. They like this structure where the pawn is on maybe f4 or f5. F4 if you're playing white, and there's a pawn on g3 just supporting the pawn on f4, and they play that structure really well. And it's one thing to be keeping your eye out on, or maybe if you're preparing against them, you should be preparing for such structures. Anyway, not to give out anything more than that, they actually like playing such structures. So queen to d3 was played by Newton, and again, I get the idea of queen to d3. You're trying to attack the pawn on f5, but this is not the best way to do it, because the pawn on f5 at the moment I think is untouchable. You should maybe try rerouting your knight on c3, because it isn't really doing much here. You can maybe try and put it on e2, then g3, and try and apply pressure on that f5 pawn in this way. Maybe move this knight on f3, prepare pawn to f2, prepare to strike in the center with pawn to e4. Many more ideas than playing queen to b3. So queen to d3 was actually, I think, a very poor move, because then the knight even jumps to e4 and you can't really do anything about it. Your queen is misplaced on d3, and now Newton plays pawn to b4, which I think is another huge step in the wrong direction. As highlighted, the pawn on c2 is going to become a very huge weakness in this position. It's a backward pawn, and you can't really do anything to save that pawn. You can't really defend it in any way. You can't really push it to c4, because then you want your pawn on b3 before pushing the other pawn to c4. You really want to capture back in the center with your pawn and maintain that very beautiful pawn structure. But in this position, you've already pushed your pawn to b4, and you can never return your pawn back to b3. Even pushing your pawn to b3, I think, would have been better than pushing it all out to b4, because it's going to be a huge target for black. It's going to be a very huge weakness for white, not even considering talking about the pawn on c2, because you can never move that pawn anymore. It's just lost. So what I think the idea for Newton Karimi was to maybe, because when you hear about Carlsbad structures and maybe London systems and Karokans and such things, you hear about Carlsbad structures, and you're really the one thing that is very advertised is the minority attack. But if you look at the position, there isn't really a minority attack, because you all have pretty much the same number of pawns on the board. You all have the same pawns on the queen side, and you can't really launch a minority attack with such a structure. You can't really attack blacks queen side with also the same number of pawns, with the idea of a minority. I don't think it makes sense. I don't know if it makes sense, because I don't think whatever he even did made sense. But let's see how Sasha dealt with it. So Sasha played pawn to a5, challenging the pawn, and the pawn was pushed back, was pushed all the way to b5, just confirming that the pawn was a weakness. And now I think he was giving it up to try and maybe launch some ideas, some threats maybe. But in this position, the tactics just don't work for him. So queen takes on c3, queen takes, knight takes on c3, queen takes back on c3, and now pawn takes on b5, offering the queen trade, which I think is a bad idea in this position. So Newton played his queen back to d3, trying to attack the pawns on b5, trying to double attack the pawn on b5 and also the pawn on f5. But then it's not really attack, because then Sasha just played pawn to g6, defending the most important pawn of the two. And after queen takes on b5, queen to c3 is played with check. And now after king to e2, queen takes on c2 with check. Knight was brought back to d2, and now queen went back to c6, offering the queen trade. Newton played rook h to b1, saying that if you want a queen trade, let's do it on my terms. And here Sasha played pawn to h6, just trying to free up that f6 square for the knight, because the knight is sitting awkwardly on d7. And now the bishop went back to f1, f4, and after bishop takes on f4, pawn takes on f4, we have another position that needs some sort of a highlight, or some sort of an analysis, because then bishop bishop being played back to f4, in my opinion, wasn't really a strong move. Maybe what you could have tried, maybe play something like bishop to h4, after maybe pawn here, maybe play bishop to g3, and after this push, oh, actually after this push you're going to lose your bishop, so for nothing. So I don't think okay, what he did was okay, but then after bishop takes, pawn takes, you just have this position where no matter what you do, it's just a lost position for you, because the pawn on f4 is going to be an eternal weakness. There's no way you're going to defend that pawn on f4. It's going to be really hard to defend it. And again, with the pawn on f4, the other pawn on d4 is also another weakness in the position. It's going to be really hard to play against it. So here Sasha castled. Newton played queen takes on b7, winning a pawn. And now Sasha played queen to d6. So you, in this position, you might think that g3 is a move that defends f4, but I'm going to challenge you to pause and actually find the idea after g3, what is actually lacking in the position, that if you play pawn to g3 you're just lost. So you can take your time, try and find it. But then I'm going to show you guys. So if you play pawn to g3 in this position, I think rook f to b8 is just losing. I think the queen is trapped at this point, I think, and you can't really do anything about it rather than exchange the queen for maybe the rook, but it's going to be losing either way, so you can't really defend that pawn on f4. And instead Newton went with rook to b5, trying to create something on his own, trying to attack the pawn on d5. And now Sasha played knight to f6, just defending the pawn on d5. Very good understanding of the position, very good a conversion of the position. And now after rook to b6, Sasha played queen takes on f4. And you might think she sacrificed the knight, but after queen takes on d4, you notice that both of the rooks are attacked and you can't really defend both of them. So here he played rook takes on f7, maybe trying to be sneaky, trying to be tricky with the position, but then Sasha just played rook a to e8 with check, and you can't really move your king anywhere in this position. You can't move it to f1, because then you lose the rook on a1 with check, and then you're going to lose the rook on f7. So Newton was kind of forced to play rook to e7, blocking the check. And now after rook takes with check, queen takes back, and queen takes on a1, you see the position. You see that black is now material up. Position is looking better for him, for her actually, and it's an amazing okay, the conversion is going to be easier for black than white in this position, by all means, by all senses. But we always say if you have a knight, never resign. So Newton continued playing. Queen to e6 with check, king to g7, queen takes on d5, and now Sasha played rook to e8 with check, king went to f3, and now Sasha played queen to a3. I'm going to challenge you for the second time in this position. In the game, in this position, there's a very cute mate in two tactic. You can maybe pause the clock and try and find it. But yeah, if you just want to see it, then it's queen to d1 with check, and wherever this king moves, where either to f4 or g3, it's still going to be mate on g4, checkmate on g4. So you can't really after queen to d1, you can't really defend. It's a very nice mate into tactic, and I don't know if Sasha missed it or chose to actually torture her opponent, but Sasha went for queen takes on a3 with check. The knight blocked the check, but this is just an admission. It's just completely losing at this point. So pawn to a4 was played, winning the knight. So queen to d4 with check, king to h7, and now after queen to g3, queen takes on b3 with check. Pawn to f3 was played, and now rook to e7, just protecting yourself from any double attacks by the queen. Queen went to f6, and now queen to e6, offering the queen trade. Queen went back to a1, and now the queen trade was forced with queen to e1 with check. Queen takes, rook takes, and now from here it was a very simple, easy conversion with queen to f6 with check. The pawn is pushed forward, takes with check, takes back, and now after rook to e4 with check. It's now a very simple ladders mate by Sasha Mongeli, and this is a very brilliant game played by her. It's amazing the level of understanding that she has of her positions, and I think she's going to be one of the players that are going to really threaten the ladies section of the national championship this year. So it's amazing. And a few other shoutouts. I'm going to try and find some of her games. Elizabeth Cassidy is also, she's I think 13 or 14 years, but she's also going to be very dangerous, and she's going to be one of the players to watch out for in these national championships. So yeah, this was a game by Sasha Mongeli. There are going to be so many other games covered of the national championship, and also of other games that were played before to get you ready for the national championships. So yeah, this was the game Sasha Mongeli against Newton Karimi, or Newton Karimi against Sasha Mongeli rather. And yeah, hope you have an amazing rest of your week. You can check out any of the other games. They're going to be links on the screen right now, and don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe.